Most of your suffering does not come from life itself. It comes from the way you think about life. Before you object, before your mind rushes to defend itself, allow me to say this plainly. The human being is not tormented by reality as much as he is tormented by the stories he tells himself about reality. We live not in the world, but in our heads. And that is precisely the problem. Look closely at your day. Your body may be sitting in a chair, walking down a street, or lying in bed, but your mind is almost never there. It is replaying conversations that ended years ago. It is rehearsing arguments that may never happen. It is imagining futures filled with disaster or triumph, neither of which exist in this moment. And while you are busy living in these invisible worlds, life itself quietly passes by, untouched, unexperienced. The moment you stop living in your head, everything changes, not because the world becomes kinder, but because you finally meet it as it is. The tyranny of thought. Man prides himself on his intellect. Yet it is this very intellect that becomes his jailer. Thought was meant to serve life, not dominate it. But the modern human has inverted this relationship. He is ruled by his thoughts as a servant is ruled by a cruel master, never resting, never satisfied. I observed long ago that the intellect is like a restless animal. Leave it unattended, and it will gnaw at you. It will fabricate fears, magnify insults, and invent meanings where none exist. A passing glance becomes a personal attack. A single failure becomes a lifelong identity. A moment of silence becomes rejection. And so you suffer, not because something happened, but because you thought about what might have happened, what it could mean, and what it says about you. Consider this. Two people experience the same event. One is disturbed for weeks. The other forgets it by nightfall. Was the event different? No, only the thinking. This is why I once wrote that a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. In solitude, thought quiets. In silence, the mind loosens its grip. But when we are constantly entangled in mental noise, comparisons, ambitions, regrets, we are never at peace. Why the mind never finds satisfaction? You may believe that if you could just think more clearly, plan better, analyze deeper, then peace would arrive. This is the great illusion. The mind does not seek peace, it seeks control, and control is endless. Desire gives birth to thought, and thought feeds desire. You want something, you imagine having it, you fear losing it. You compare yourself to others who possess it, and even when you obtain it, the satisfaction fades quickly, replaced by a new want. Thus the cycle continues. I call this the will, a blind, ceaseless striving that drives all living things. And the intellect, instead of freeing us from this striving, often becomes its most loyal servant. When you live entirely in your head, you are trapped in this cycle. You are always chasing relief in the future or redemption in the past. Rarely are you simply here. And yet, it is only here that life occurs, the forgotten wisdom of direct experience. Let me tell you something simple, yet easily forgotten. Reality is not hostile. It is indifferent. The tree outside your window does not judge you. The sky does not care about your failures. The wind carries no opinion of your worth. These things simply exist. They are at peace because they do not argue with what is. Human beings, however, resist reality endlessly. We argue with what happened. We resent what is. We fear what may come. And in doing so, we exhaust ourselves. Have you ever noticed that your greatest moments of peace came when thought temporarily stopped? Perhaps while listening to music, watching the ocean, walking alone at night, or becoming absorbed in a simple task. In those moments, you were not analyzing yourself. You were not constructing narratives. You were simply present. This is not accident. This is truth revealing itself quietly. The moment you step out of your head, even briefly, suffering loosens its grip. Why overthinking is a form of escape. Many believe they think too much because they care too much. In reality, excessive thinking is often a way of avoiding life. When you live in your head, you do not have to feel uncertainty fully. You do not have to risk disappointment. You do not have to act. thought becomes a shield against experience. But life demands participation, not speculation. A man who endlessly imagines possible outcomes never commits to any path. A woman who dissects every emotion never truly feels. And so both remain suspended, safe but stagnant. I do not say this cruelly. I say it because I recognize it in human nature. We cling to thought because it gives us the illusion of mastery. But mastery over life is impossible. One can only meet life honestly. The role of suffering and how thought magnifies it. Suffering is inevitable. This I never denied. To live is to suffer, because to live is to want. But there is a difference between necessary suffering and manufactured suffering. Necessary suffering comes from loss, illness, limitation. Manufactured suffering comes from mental resistance, replaying pain, clinging to identity, demanding that reality conform to desire. A wound hurts, but constantly touching it, inspecting it, explaining it, that is optional. When you stop living in your head, pain remains pain, but it no longer multiplies itself through endless narration. You feel it, you endure it, and, most importantly, you allow it to pass. Thought says, this should not have happened. Reality says, it did. Peace begins when you stop arguing with reality. Stillness is an act of rebellion. In a world that rewards constant noise, stillness is radical. To sit quietly without stimulation, to observe without judgment, to exist without commentary, this is not weakness. It is strength. When you stop living in your head, you begin to notice things that thought obscures: subtle beauty, quiet joy, the simple dignity of being alive without explanation. This does not mean abandoning reason. It means putting it in its proper place. Reason is a tool, not a throne. What changes when you step out of your mind? When you stop living in your head, several transformations occur, quietly, without drama. You stop taking everything personally. You stop rehearsing imaginary conflicts. You stop measuring your worth against others. You respond instead of react. You observe instead of assume. You live instead of narrate. Life does not become easier, but it becomes lighter. And perhaps most importantly, you rediscover something that thought can not provide: a direct relationship with existence itself. If there is one truth I would leave you with, it is this: you do not need to escape your life. You need to enter it. The world you fear is mostly constructed by your own mind. Step outside it, even for a moment, and you will find that life is not waiting to attack you. It is waiting to be lived. So the next time your thoughts pull you into regret or anticipation, pause. Feel your breath. Notice where you are. Let reality speak before thought interrupts. Because the moment you stop living in your head, everything changes. Not because you have conquered life, but because you have finally met it. And that perhaps is the beginning of wisdom.